Welcome to Nickel City Mafia, where we talk all things Buffalo and then some. That's the old line, Jake. Remember that one from years ago?
Oh
And by
yeah.
the way, happy birthday, man. It is 4 years now for Nickel City Mafia. So happy birthday to
Wow.
both of us. It's crazy when you think about it, right? And tonight we're going to be doing a show, something we've done in years past, where we're going to talk about what team in the AFC East we think is the biggest threat to the Buffalo Bills in 2025. And we're going to go through each of the teams: Patriots, Jets, Dolphins, talk about their offseason, their draft, free agency. And then at the very end, we're going to give you who we think that team is. Now, Jake, in years past, I think we've done this now 2 or 3 times. It's been the Dolphins. It's been the Dolphins. I know a couple years back when Rodgers, there was a buzz there, like the Jets were going to win the Super Bowl because Aaron Rodgers joined them, and that didn't go too well. And even last year, they brought on Devontae Adams to help Rodgers. Didn't go too well either. So gone is Rodgers, but yeah, I don't know. This might be a year where we don't see the Dolphins. Maybe not, right? Because there's, we're going to talk about New England, who I think had a really good offseason. The Jets, yeah, there's a lot of question marks there, but still have a really good lineup there. And then, of course, our good old Miami Dolphins. So we'll see how things go. But Jake, how you been, man?
Been good, Mike. It's been a while since we've gotten on the airwaves here,
It is.
but I'm excited to discuss this. This is definitely a very polarizing topic. I think every year, we get a lot of different opinions and feedback, and we collaborate with a lot of fans from the AFC East, and one of those guys being Keith, or a guy from the Dolphins there. And I know they were excited about some of the draft picks that they had over there in Miami, but that team is kind of reshaped a little bit, and just kind of breaking it down and going through what the Patriots did, what the Jets did, and even what the Dolphins did again. Who is the biggest threat to the Buffalo Bills in the East, who have won 5 straight AFC East titles? So yeah, excited to get into it.
I love how you say that proudly. 5 straight.
That's
Yes.
right.
And last year it was quite the debacle for the other teams in the AFC East, right? Buffalo Bills wrapped up that division pretty early on, maybe one of the earliest they've ever wrapped up a division. It was pretty
That's right.
crazy. I don't expect that to happen again. It sure made our life easy, less stress on us. We knew we were going to be in the playoffs early on, and I don't think that'll be the case this year. But let's get into it. We're going to talk about the Jets first, right? So the Jets, like I had said already, Rodgers gone, Devontae Adams gone, cornerback DJ Reed gone, big loss there, and then linebacker CJ Mosley gone. Right, those are big losses. And then in free agency, and I'm going to talk about I'm going to talk about all the players they brought in, but some of the bigger players that they brought in to fill some needs. So Justin Fields, quarterback, right? He signed to a 2-year, $40 million contract. And this is the first question I have, Mr. Podger. I mean, this is a young man who's on his third team already. He was, I think he was what, 11th overall in 2021 for the Chicago Bears.
Mm-hmm.
And things didn't go so well there. Made his way over to the Steelers last year. But they also had Russell Wilson. So Fields didn't get much play time there. Now here he is. This is his team. What do you think about Justin Fields? I mean, where do you see him right now? Obviously, the confidence has got to be a little shaken. But talk to me about what you see and what he can bring to the Jets.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, you're talking about a brand new dynamic at the quarterback position for the Jets that they really have not had at all in maybe their entire history. I mean, when you look at Jets quarterbacks, most of them have been that traditional pocket passer. And I know, like, you could throw in Zach Wilson in the mix here and label him as more of a scrambling type and a guy that likes to bail and get outside the pocket and throw on the run. But he is not a Justin Fields type. He is not a guy that is going to run for over 1,000 yards in a season as a quarterback. So I think the dynamic that he brings is something that Jets fans have never seen before in their entire history. I mean, I can't really remember a guy that has been like him. So that already is super unique, and I think that should excite Jet fans for sure. You look at what he did last year with the Steelers. He went 4-2 as their starting quarterback, and I'll tell you what, at the time, they had to make a really hard decision on benching him for Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
What he did commanding that offense, like the statistics weren't insane, but he did enough to win some games. And you saw some flashes where it's like, all right, this kid can still play, and he's a starting eligible quarterback in the NFL. So, I think a lot of people overlook him. I think, with some good coaching finally, and I'm not saying Mike Tomlin wasn't a good coach, but, maybe you put him into a different situation with some better weapons and a better offensive system for him. He can do some things. And actually, I thought the Steelers was a really good fit for him last year in terms of the offensive system and structure and, running the football first. Like that's the type of offense I feel like he would thrive in. So now he comes to New York here. He's got Brees Hall and some other guys there that can help him out and make him better. And a much better offensive line, in my opinion, there in New York. So that's definitely a huge plus for him. I'm really excited to see what he can do. Obviously, don't want him to tear it up too much, especially against the Buffalo Bills. But no, I think I'm going to say something here. I think the Jets kind of upgraded at the quarterback position
Oh,
over last
okay.
year.
That's a big take.
I
Big
know it
take.
is.
Isn't it kind of
Yeah,
funny that he left the Steelers and the buzz is that Rodgers may go to the Steelers,
that's
right?
crazy.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's like
Both
a
Russ,
little swap. Yeah,
right? Both Russ and him leave, and potentially Rodgers will be joining them. I don't know when we'll know that, but that's been the when we'll know for sure where Rodgers is going to end up. But that's been the buzz for right now. So
yeah,
crazy stuff there. I agree with you. Justin Fields, he showed some flashes in Chicago. And then last year, like you said, when he did play, he shined. So here we go. My only concern is, of course, another big thing that's happened with this Jets team is they got a brand new coaching staff. Brand new coaching staff. I mean, they got Aaron Glenn, their new head coach. They got offensive coordinator Tanner Egstrand and
yep.
defensive coordinator Steve Wilkes. All brand new. So you got new quarterback, you got some new system that's going to be put into play. I like the talent. I like what I see on the team. I feel like this is going to take a little while to get going with that. I don't know if they can work out everything during the off season and during the mini camps and all that good stuff. But agree with you on good pickup there of Justin Fields. And then they brought in cornerback Brandon Stevens from the Ravens. They brought in safety and Andre Cisco, Josh Reynolds, wide receiver. I wasn't too impressed with the guys they picked up in free agency other than Fields. Maybe you have some take on some of these guys, but Stevens. I mean, they signed him for a three-year, $36 million, and he's been at best kind of an average corner
Mhm.
throughout his career. Cisco, safety, Jaguars, they bring him out for a 1 year, $8.5 million deal. And then Reynolds, they bring in for just a 1 year, $2.75 million. So in any case, I feel like their offensive weapons are strong. You got Garrett Wilson, Lazard, you got Reynolds, who they just brought on. Um, Tight end wise, they drafted, we're going to talk about the draft in a little bit, Mason Taylor. Drafted him in the
Yeah.
second round this year. Let me finish that up because I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So we went through the free agents, some of the big players. Let's talk about their draft picks as well. Armand Membu. Now, last year, Jake, you even said at the beginning of the season that their line needed to get better, their offensive line. And that really was part of the downfall for them over the last couple seasons was that offensive line. And this year they go big in the first round, 7th pick overall, Armand Membu out of University of Missouri. And we liked him. We talked about him in our pre-draft, and we just didn't need an offensive tackle, not a starting one right now, because our line's been pretty darn good. But this guy's a stud, man, and great pick there. And then in the second round, they pick up Mason Taylor. We just talked about tight end out of LSU. And let me stop there. First of all, give me your thoughts on Armand Membu and Mason Taylor.
Yeah, Armand Membu, absolute mammoth of a human being. It's a natural fit for him to play right tackle too. So for him to just slot right in, that's so exciting. You have 2 top 10 picks at your tackle positions in Olu Fashanu, and then you have Armand Menmu on the other side. I mean, that's pretty awesome. You get to build from the outside in. And, I like what they did in terms of the offensive line depth that they added this year. They bring in Josh Myers, and then they get Chukwura Okafor as well. So not a bad job with the signings there. And I think those are really good depth pieces and some veteran leadership that they add to the locker room there, and guys that can rotate in if need be, God forbid an injury occurs. They still have Joe Tippmann at center, who is a really good young center. Elijah Vera Tucker, I'll tell you what, if he can stay healthy, he can be a very good player too. And then they have John Simpson, who they signed from Baltimore last year, who is a serviceable and solid left guard. So, yeah, I love what they've done with the offensive line. They continue to build that up. And, yeah, the draft pick of Membu was a match made in heaven and the right selection all day long. That was the one position that they needed to address in the offseason, and they did so. So, great job by them. Great job by the front office. And then, yeah, in the second round, they go and grab Jason Taylor's son, Mason Taylor, at the tight end position. Now, the Jets, you talk about a position that's kind of been, I guess, invisible for them. And I don't want to disrespect Ty Conklin because he had some years there where he was pretty solid, caught a lot of passes. But they haven't had a game changer at the tight end position, maybe since the flash in the pan that was in Dustin Keller. I mean, they've tried it too by drafting guys high in the past, such as, Anthony Beck, such as even before that, Kyle Brady, and it just hasn't really worked out. So this to me has been their best draft pick since Dustin Keller at the tight end position.
Wow.
And that should too excite Jet fans because it brings, again, a new dynamic to that offense that they really haven't seen in quite some time. So you factor in Justin Fields, you factor in the new tight end and Mason Taylor, and then you have a quarterback-proof receiver in Garrett Wilson, who's registered 1,000-yard seasons every single year he's been in the league, regardless of who's throwing him the football. I mean, you got something going there. It's really, really, I think, an underrated offense, and they have some really good young weapons in addition to that solid offensive line. And, Mike, how dare you not mention the signing of Andrew Beck, fullback, former Texans, Packers, and Broncos fullback / tight end / H-back. I think he actually took a kickoff back for a touchdown not too long ago, if I recall. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else. I don't know. But Andrew Beck, absolute stud. They do have a fullback in that offense. So you know how much I love the fullback position.
Yes,
so seeing this offense kind of excites me a little bit. I'll be honest with you. I think if I'm a Jets fan, I'm feeling decent right now. I'm feeling pretty good. And you know what's cool?
Yeah.
I think the lack of expectations. Last year it was, this team is the Super Bowl team. Like, this is the team to beat. And the letdown that Jets fans always seemingly have had to have been even worse last year, especially because they did go out and get Devontae Adams, in addition to having a healthy Aaron Rodgers throwing the football. So I think for them, you get Justin Fields on, a low risk, high reward deal, and you just let him go out there and sling it and do his thing. And God forbid he gets hurt. You have Tyrod Taylor as your backup, who's done some miraculous things coming in and filling in for, guys in the past and really what he did here in Buffalo. That guy could still play too, So, and I'm not saying he's the greatest thing since sliced bread or anything like that, but, you got some good players there. So,
yeah, I agree. I think we always liked it when the Bills were kind of not in the main media, right? They're not expected to win the division.
Mm-hmm.
But the Jets the last 2 years, obviously that kind of fell short quickly when Rodgers went down 2 years ago, but there was high expectations for this team. And now people are kind of looking at them probably as the team to finish last in the division. But I don't know, Jake. I'm not going to say it right now. We'll say it at the end. We'll save this for the last. But you look at that offense, the line. The offensive line looks very good. Depending on how Membu shows out, I mean, I think he's going to be great. So I think there's little question that he's going to be extremely good. The rest of that line is very good. They've got a few first rounders on that offensive line. Yeah. So looking pretty good. Like you mentioned, Tippmann. Tippmann was a guy we looked at a few years ago that we were excited about potentially getting, right? So a lot of good guys, weapons as well. And then let me continue on with their draft. And then maybe we'll talk a little bit about what you think about their defense coming in this year, because that's always been one of the solid pieces for them. And maybe that's a little bit of a question mark this year. Again, new defensive coordinator. And we'll talk about a little bit about that. So they go out in the third round, and hopefully I say this gentleman's name right. If not, you can correct me. Azariah Thomas. Azariah
Yep.
Thomas. And he's a cornerback out of FSU, and he's taken in the third round, 73rd overall. Again, they did need some help in their secondary. He's that guy. What'd you think of him? Because we were looking at corners too, right? Bills needed a cornerback. We actually took Maxwell Hairston in the first round. A lot of folks thought we would take Trey Amos. But did you have Thomas on your radar at all? And if not, can you talk a little bit about him?
Yeah, I did actually. I had him slated as more of a second round pick,
Okay.
a guy that was really kind of overlooked in this cornerback class. But the Jets did a great job by getting him in the third round. He's got decent size. He's like 6'1.5", almost 200 pounds.
Yeah, so wonderful.
Um, pretty good arm length too. In addition to that, has a he played I think 3 full years at Florida State, and what I like for him in the Jets scheme is he is more of that press man corner. So for the Bills, I don't know if it was necessarily the best fit because we still have that PTSD from Kyer Elam and trying to scheme him into our defense. But I would have liked taking a flyer on him if he was available in the third round. If we weren't able to get a Landon Jackson, why not go get a guy like this, right? So no, I think it's a great pick for the Jets. I think you have to replace DJ Reed, and they do the best they can with Brandon Stevens. But then you got a guy in waiting here in Azariah Thomas who is going to be a great fit in that Jets defense. And by the way, you have Aaron Glenn as your head coach. So what a guy to learn from, former Jet corner and Pro Bowl corner himself. I think that's a fantastic job by them. And a guy that's going to be a starter in that defense sooner rather than later.
Love it. Yeah, so then I'm not going to go through all their draft picks, but I'll go through the fourth round. They had 2 fourth-round picks. They go with wide receiver Arian Smith out of University of Georgia, and they go with Malachi Moore out of Alabama in the fourth round as well. So pick 110 overall and 130. So talk to me about those two young guys, and then we'll talk a little bit about that defense and what that's shaping up to be for them.
Yeah, I mean, I liked what they did there to kind of end out the draft. As far as the receiver room goes, it's a mishmash of guys. When you look at the wide receiver room there in New York, it's interesting. I don't know who's going to be that wide receiver 2. I would assume it's going to be Josh Reynolds, most likely, who they brought in. Had a really disappointing year this past year. Ended up getting cut, I think, by Denver. Went to Jacksonville, and now he's back with New York. So there's going to be some competition there without a doubt. You said Malachi Moore, Mike?
Malachi Moore, safety.
Malachi Moore, the safety. Right, yes. So they already have Tony Adams, and they brought in Andre Sisco at the safety positions there. So I think he'll be more of that rotational type guy. I don't think he's going to be a starter this year or anything like that, but a nice depth piece that they ended up taking. Alabama, just a true strong safety, and I think he'll be a more of a special teamer to start. So he's not going to be, getting a whole lot of playing time on the defensive side of things. But yeah, kind of filling out the roster a little bit there just with some depth pieces. Yeah, Arian Smith, who you mentioned, the receiver that they took, Georgia kid. Yeah, I mean, kind of a speedier guy. And again, that receiver room is an interesting mix of players. And this is a dude that I don't think is necessarily going to be playing a whole lot on the offensive side of things. He might contribute more on the special team side to start.
So all that said, let's talk a little bit about the defense right now. And obviously, we talked about one of the big losses, actually 2 of the big losses: cornerback DJ Reed and linebacker CJ Mosley. Those are tough shoes to fill. Very tough shoes to fill. And along their front is McDonald. Yeah, McDonald. McDonald had a really good season last year. I think he's coming off a 10-sack year. Of course, you've got Quinnen Williams, always a stud, one of the best in the game. And then they have Jermaine Johnson. That dude was, I forget I think he was drafted in the first or second round a few years back. Yeah, it was first round, 26 overall. Really showed up well in his rookie year, showed up well 2023. And then something happened last year. It looks like in 2024 he didn't play a lot of snaps. So maybe it was he suffered an injury. but a really good stud there. I think you'll see a nice bounce back for him off the edge there. And of course, you got one of
I
the
think it was
best
an.
corners.
I want to say it was an Achilles
Was
tendon
it
last
Achilles?
year,
Okay,
Mike.
that
Yeah,
makes sense. That
that's
makes sense.
brutal.
And then you got Sauce Gardner. You just talked about them bringing over Brandon Stevens, but they did draft a corner. So we'll have to see how that plays out in camp. Who's going to be that second, that starter over there at cornerback, that number 2, just like the Bills. Bills right now, it's interesting. We drafted Maxwell Hairston. He is supposed to be that number 2 cornerback, but we also brought over Trey White and Dean Jackson. We brought those guys back, and I don't know. I'm still in shock. Not in shock, but nervous because a few years back when we drafted Kyrie Elam, which you and I were extremely excited about, he did
Oh
not
yeah.
start week 1. As a matter of fact, he ended up never really being a true starter for the Buffalo Bills. Sure, there were some games where he had to fill in, but yeah. So we'll see how that pans out. But they have a similar situation right here, right? Stevens they brought in, but we'll see if their pick, third round
Third
pick,
round.
Thomas can
Yeah.
fill that void for them. And their linebacking core is pretty well set as well. Returning with Quincy Williams, he played like 1,000 snaps last year, and then Jamie and Sherwood, very solid linebackers. And you were mentioning, I think, before the show, C.J. Mosley was injured a bit last year,
Yep.
right? Even though it's a big loss, these 2 guys played great. I think Sherwood filled in for him. Was that the guy who got most of the time when Mosley was out?
One heck of a year last year,
Yeah.
almost 160 tackles. And I'll tell you what, he fits the mold of this new generation linebacker. I know you don't love it, Mike, but 6'2", like 220-ish around there, plays a little smaller, but makes up for it with athleticism, tenacity, aggressiveness. Good young player. I think you're getting a little bit younger there, obviously. Well, you're absolutely getting younger there, but also you're getting a guy that is a little more athletic. As you can see with Mosley, I think the injuries have sort of caught up to him. And, while he was a fantastic linebacker for years and years, it was time because, you can only have so many of those season-ending injuries to the point where it's going to start affecting your play. And I think it sort of already did, as you saw in those first 3 games or whatever that he did play last year.
Yeah, and PFF, according to PFF, I mean, Sherwood was the 18th ranked linebacker, and Williams was the 32nd. So again, you got that front line who typically has always been stout. So they fired Robert Saleh during the season, which I thought was a big mistake. I actually like Saleh. I thought there were other issues outside of Saleh, but they fire him, and I'm not sure. What was your take on that defense last year? It didn't seem to be like, especially, and what I'm judging it off of, Jake, is mostly when they played the Buffalo Bills. Because that's where I see them. I don't watch a lot of Jet football. Why would I watch Jet football unless they're playing the Bills? But it just felt like they fell off a bit.
They absolutely did. And it's interesting because the guy that they brought in to replace Saleh last year mid-season was their defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, right? So while I thought, maybe the defense would get better, it just was not the case. And yeah, they struggled, and, they were dealing with a lot of injuries though too. So, and listen, I know every team deals with injuries and whatnot, but you would expect the defense to still live up to a higher standard than what they basically put out there on the field last year. Now, tough situation. They had both their GM and the head coach fired. Joe Douglas, I think, was fired. It was later on in the season, whereas Saleh was a little bit earlier on. It was like after the 5th game or something. And actually, I think that first game that Ulbrich came in and coached, it was against our Buffalo Bills. It was the night game, and we ended up beating them there. So, yeah, they had to navigate a lot of different challenges last year, but I would expect that defense to return to form. They have some really good young players, and now you get another defensive-minded head coach and a bit of a refresher in Aaron Glenn. So I think it was the right move. I know Jets fans want a probably more of an offensive prowess leading the helm there, but if you're going to get a guy, I think Aaron Glenn is the perfect fit.
Yeah. All right, so there you have it. Jets, again, you might think no Rodgers, no Devontae Adams, all is lost. No. As you said earlier, Jake, you think there's this is an upgrade, at least at the quarterback position.
It's crazy.
And again, when you look at the line, I think the line's a much better, the offensive line is a much better standing than last year. they've always had good weapons around their quarterback with Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall that you mentioned, drafting a young kid, Taylor, tight end. There's plenty of weapons for Fields. And obviously, Fields can hurt you with his legs as well. So, kind of, if I'm a Jet fan, I'm excited. Like you said, under the radar, not a lot of expectations. Watch out. Let's move
Yeah.
on to, let's
And
move on. Yeah, I'm sorry.
real quick, I
Go
just
ahead.
want to, because I know it might be kind of a hot take, right? Upgrade at the quarterback position. So am I saying Justin Fields is better than Aaron Rodgers? I don't know if I'm saying that, because Aaron Rodgers could still sling it, right? He still
Oh, yeah.
has arm talent that he's able to get by with. He is not mobile though, like he used to be.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a good fit with the New York Jets team. I think it was something where you're trying to fit a square peg in a tiny hole or so, whatever the saying is, right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
just don't think it was ever going to work. And they tried. I mean, they brought Devontae Adams in, and it still just did not pan out. So I just think, based on the situation going into this year and the young guys and the different things that come with, playing quarterback for the New York Jets, I think it is a much better situation that they're in right now with these, I guess, I don't know, maybe lower expectations and a guy that is more of a potential guy at the quarterback position, and a dude that just offers a totally different dynamic than they've ever seen before. So that's what I mean by that. That's why I do think it is essentially an upgrade.
Yeah. That's got to be hard for you to say because I know Aaron Rodgers is one of your favorite all-time
Top five all time.
quarterbacks, right?
Top four
Top
all time. I
four.
put him at right at number 4.
All right. Well, we
Yep.
spent a lot more time on the Jets than I thought we would, Jake. I mean, we could
I
just
know.
never keep it short, can we?
Never.
Let's see if we can pick up the pace a little bit on the Patriots. And for me, it just felt like the Patriots were doing so many good things in this offseason. I'm going to rattle through some of their free agent picks, their big ones. Then we'll talk about their draft. Obviously, they got the new head coach, Mike Vrabel, comes over, who we all respect. I don't think there's a soul you can find that doesn't think Mike Vrabel is going to turn this team around and turn it around in a hurry. So let's talk about what they did in free agency. They bring over a big defensive lineman, Mr. Milton Williams, who you probably remember for having 2 sacks in the Super Bowl from the Eagles, right? This guy's a pass rush specialist, 100%. So he's going to add to that defensive line. They bring over a person we're very familiar with, Stephon Diggs, back in the AFC East. Somebody we're going to be seeing twice a year. They signed Diggs for a 3-year, $63.5 million deal, only $26 million guaranteed, and there is an out after 1 year. So Steph's going to have to earn it, but I believe Steph will. Look, I don't dislike Steph Diggs. He brought so many good years to the Buffalo Bills. I respect him. I heard something. Is there some crazy video going around about him and him partying and some crazy stuff? I don't know. I didn't see it, but I heard it's like a little like, I don't know if it's PG. It's not something you can play on the air, especially not in Nickel City Mafia.
Yeah, the long story short of that is he's
Yeah.
on a boat and there's some women surrounding him, and he has some type of pink powdery substance that he's handing out to the girls, and the optics are not good. Let's just leave it at that. And then he wasn't at OTAs, so
Yes.
not sure what's going on there. But the football player Stephon Diggs, I mean,
Yes.
absolutely, you have to respect what he's done on the field, and he's a competitor at the end of the day. It's certainly an upgrade for them at the receiver position.
Yeah, definitely. And then they bring in cornerback Carlton Davis. They sign him to a 3-year, $54 million deal, 34.5 guaranteed. And then they bring in Robert Spillane, who I love and also played under Vrabel. And one of my favorite picks of theirs, I love this guy. I know he was coming off an injury, but Harold Landry. I mean, it was after in 2018. I believe he was drafted by Vrabel. So he's played with Vrabel. Vrabel went and brought his guys in right away, Spillane and Landry. Love that pick, 100%. So boom, splash plays. I mean, every one of those guys that I just mentioned, these are impact players. These are players that are going to make an impact on this team. These are just not fillers. These are not depth roles. These are potentially probably starters. Anyone else I missed? Anyone you want to kind of talk about a little bit more? Please do.
Yeah, I mean, they also signed Matt Collins, Mike, which was heartbreaking for us as Bills
How,
fans. I
how
mean,
can how can I forget that on
I
my
know,
list? I mean, you kidding me? I mean, I was telling you, Matt Collins. I was about ready to get his jersey. Love that guy. How
right?
do I
Yeah.
not have him on the list?
A guy that played a lot more snaps than any of us
Oh
anticipated,
yeah,
and I think he's going to do some things there in New England that Vrabes is going to absolutely love, and he's going to find a way to get him on the field. Now, that receiver room, we talked about a mismatch of a receiver room there in New York. New England, I don't know, outside of Steph Diggs and maybe Demario Douglas at the slot, I don't know what they're going to do there as the number 2 receiver. If it's just going to be musical chairs and they're just going to shift different receivers in based on the personnel, because they have a lot of guys. I mean, that is a long list of names at the receiver position there in New England. So very intrigued to see what they do. But no, I think you more or less hit it. Did you mention Garrett Bradbury at the center position? They signed him.
I did not.
Now that right there was a great signing. I felt like that was actually one of the more underrated signings of the offseason here. This is a guy that's done some great things there in Minnesota. They lost David Andrews in the offseason here. So you bring in a guy that's going to solidify the center position, most important position on the offensive line, the quarterback of the offensive line. I know a lot of people say left tackle. Those guys get paid. I get it. But you need a really good center to kind of anchor it and bring it all together. So great job by them. I know he's getting a little bit older, but this is a dude that still has proven he can play at an elite level. So great job on getting him. They signed Morgan Moses, too, at the right tackle position. Josh Dobbs as the backup quarterback there to Drake May. They traded Joe Milton away there to Dallas, and they got their new backup quarterback in Josh Dobbs. Big arm guy, and a dude that honestly, you talk about football IQ and being able to pick up an offense, and God forbid Drake May goes down. This is a guy I'd feel comfortable with putting at the helm. So, yeah, I think overall, you look at what they did, just a lot of great things. And on the defensive side, Mike, I mean, shoot, they essentially got maybe 5, 6 new starters just
Yeah,
in free agent
yeah,
signings alone.
it's crazy. Yeah, absolutely loved it. And you mentioned some of those wide receivers. I mean, Kendrick Bourne,
Yeah,
very, very good wide receiver. And they got Jalen Polk, who
just
was a
drafted him.
second round pick in 2024 last season.
Right.
So they've got some receivers. Steph Diggs is going to be the number one guy. I think he's going to be the number one guy. We have to see. He's coming off
Yeah.
an injury, 2 years removed from the Bills. We know what ACL tears can do to a player's career. Steps up there in age, but if anyone can return from it, it's Diggs. As long as he stops his partying and focuses, he'll be fine. He works really hard on his body. I say that I laugh because I'm thinking about he's out on a boat party.
Oh yeah, you got to check the video out.
Oh
Definitely got
boy.
to check it out.
Oh
It's
boy.
it's
Yeah, I heard
something.
that on the way home. I was listening. I forgot who I was listening to. I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about that. And they kept talking about this pink stuff. I'm like, can you just tell me what it was? But they weren't saying it. And they're
Yeah.
like, we can't play the video for you. So I'm like, all right, interesting. We'll have to figure out what that is. Anyhow,
Yeah.
good stuff there. So yeah, free agency, great job in free agency. Then let's talk about their draft because that was just as good. They come out firing 4th pick overall, offensive tackle Will Campbell. Many, but this is an interesting one for me. There were other tackles, but he was obviously one of the best. But many people were thinking that he'd be, and he's if he does slide in the guard, he'll be an elite guard. But many thought that he was going to maybe go to guard. But I know the Jets are going to use him at tackle. You had actually mentioned that as well, right?
Yeah, it was definitely a thing to consider, going into the draft and where he'd be playing, position wise on the offensive line. A lot of people look at the arm length and people get nervous a little bit because his arms are shorter than most offensive tackles. But at the end of the day, I mean, this guy is just an absolute mauler and a football player, and he is going to go out there and do whatever it takes. I don't think he's going to have any issue adapting to left tackle at the NFL level. So to me, it was a home run pick, and yeah, it was the right pick. It was always the right pick for New England at 4. So great move by them. Couldn't have gotten a better young man in terms of just the football player And, you look at the outside stuff too, and just how he goes through his daily business. I mean, it's just really impressive. So watched a lot of interviews with him, man. He just loves ball. It's great.
Yeah. I'm thinking back to when we did our draft with, I think it was Tony and me, you, and Keith, and how Will Campbell fell. I think he fell all
Yeah.
the way to the Dolphins.
To
in the draft.
13 to
Right, to
Miami.
the Dolphins, yeah, and
Crazy.
Keith was running to the podium for that one, but yeah, good pick here, absolutely. Again, sharing up that offensive line, got to do it for a young with their young quarterback. So great pick there. Then they go running back, and I want you to talk about this running back because this guy,
Yeah.
I don't watch a lot of college football like you do. Explosive running back out of Ohio State, Travion Henderson, 5'10", 212 guy, but very explosive. Is what I read. I have not seen any film, not seen him in college, but I know you have. So talk to me about this pick.
Well, this taking Travion Henderson in the second round, first off, tells me that New England is going back to the old way where they would just rotate backs, and whatever back it was, whoever was having the day, whoever was having the hot hand, they just kind of ride them, right? So Travion Henderson, they take in the second round, but they already have Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson in addition to that.
Yeah.
But he joins a crowded running back room where I think he's going to really compete for a ton of playing time, and a guy that's going to be hard to keep off the field because what he offers is not only a ground and pound approach, but he catches passes extremely well and also can return kicks. So I think that's what they really fell in love with him, is just the versatility. I think it was a fantastic job by Vrabes. He loves guys that are disciplined. This guy only has one fumble in his entire college career, and he had like over 650 career touches or something like that, which is super impressive. And by the way, he still split time with Quinshon Judkins, so he's kind of familiar with that role player type back role, if you will, and just a total team player in general. So, he fits the Patriot way. It's just a shoe-in pick by New England to go and get him. And yeah, just a great job. And I think what really appealed was the fact that he can catch passes out of the backfield. You pair him with Ramondre Stevenson, who is more of that like bull of running back, a guy that's going to be the short yardage power back guy. Yeah, a match made in heaven. And then Antonio Gibson in addition to that. I mean, it's great stuff there.
Yeah, it's kind of like our three-headed horse at running back for the Buffalo Bills. I love our running back room. It's fantastic. Although James Cook also did not show up for OTAs. Interesting.
Right. Yeah.
All right, so let me rattle off their next few picks in the draft. They draft wide receiver Kyle Williams out of Washington State, 6-foot guy, about 186. And then they draft a offensive lineman, Jared Wilson, out of University of Georgia. That was their third-round pick. They had 2 third-round picks, both Kyle Williams and Jared Wilson. And then they choose a safety in the 4th round, Craig Woodson. And then they take a guy, big dude, guy that we've talked about, guy that we wouldn't mind having, was just Joshua Farmer, defensive lineman. They take him in the 4th round. So those first, what do I got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 picks. Fantastic in the draft. And go ahead, talk about any of the guys you want to talk about that I mentioned there that they took in the draft.
Well, if there was one receiver I really would have keyed on, and a dude that I would want the Buffalo Bills to have taken in this draft outside of, obviously Matthew Golden, it would have been Kyle Williams. I mean, this is your John Brown 2.0 right here. Like, this is a guy that is a field stretcher, a dude that averaged over 17 yards a catch there, did some incredible things at Washington State, but, has that deep speed that we so desperately have been craving. And we may have gotten an Elijah Moore. We just don't really know. I don't think we've totally unlocked the full potential of Elijah Moore yet, and we're about to do that this season. So I'm excited to see that. But listen, we're talking about New England here, right? Kyle Williams, this is the dude, right? This is the guy that I would have wanted the Bills to maybe take in the draft. And for New England to go and get him, it definitely hurt me a little bit. But again, you look at that receiver room, I'm just curious to see what they're going to do. Who's going to be that number 2 guy? Is Mac Hollins going to be the number 2? Is it going to be Kyle Williams? Is it going to be Jalen Polk? Is it going to be, Kendrick Bourne? I mean, there's a lot of options there. Javon Baker, another guy too, that's in that receiver room. So it is crowded. But I guess at the same time, you can never have enough weapons. And this is a dude that's going to stretch the field and give Drake May a guy to just launch the ball to. So, yeah, just a great job by getting him. I think it's a great value pick for them in round 3. You mentioned Jared Wilson at center. Interesting pick. I guess I understand it. I mean, you're going to get younger at the center position because Garrett Bradbury, I think, is 30, 32, something like that. So while I love the signing, it's like, hey, you're not getting any younger at center. So go ahead and take a guy that could potentially replace them in the future. He's a little more raw, I feel like. There's a chance that he switches over and plays some guard too. I've seen that. But yeah, I think he's going to probably be the backup center there in New England. So kind of an interesting move. I didn't totally understand that one, but I guess I do in terms of just age and getting younger. And you mentioned Farmer too, the defensive tackle, who I actually really liked a lot and was a potential guy on our board for the Buffalo Bills. What I liked with him is, just in terms of, run stopper and the ability to kind of clog and do what he has to do in the middle and do the less glorious things. I think, he's going to be a rotational piece there. He's not going to be a starter or anything like that, but a guy that's going to get a chance to be on the field and be a rotational player in the future there. So the one guy you did not mention, Mike, who was drafted actually in round 5, who I loved, was Braden Swinson. And I think that guy is a future NFL starter and a dude that was maybe one of the better day 3 picks in general. So talk about Braden Swinson, defensive end, edge player out of LSU, going to be the future there. And I know they signed Harold Landry, but what a guy to learn from in Braden Swinson. So, yeah, not bad.
Yeah.
They
Well,
did draft a kicker too, Andres Barregalas out of Miami. Shout out.
we got to mention your special teams guys, don't you?
That's right.
Craig Woodson. I mean, you kind of skipped over him. Safety,
Yeah.
just athleticism for days. I think that's a great pick for them. 6 foot, 200-pound guy. You didn't say anything about him. Is that because you forgot I said him, or is there just not something you weren't a big fan?
No, I don't mind him. I know he played a long time at Cal too. I think he was 5 years. Maybe it was 5. No, he was 6 years because he was a COVID guy too. So he was there for quite some time. Probably going to be more of a special teams player to start off. But yeah, he'll probably be a rotational piece there too. Yeah, I mean, not a bad pick whatsoever. And the nice part with him is he's a versatile player. Like he could play just about anywhere on the field. Kind of does remind me of like Kyle Duggar a little bit. So yeah, good pick by them there in round 4.
All right. So we talk about their free agents, their drafts. They probably graded an A in both of them. And so let's talk about it. So again, Mike Vrabel coming over. I don't know. Did they bring over who's the OC now? Who's the DC over there in New England? And talk to me about that coaching staff.
Yeah. So Vrabes is going to bring a sense of toughness and a sense of revitalization there to New England. And I do feel bad for Gerard Mayo because I feel like he had a really tough position to fill. He was filling the shoes of a legend in Bill Belichick, and the roster he kind of was dealt and set up with, it was more of a like start over type roster. So unfortunately for him, like as much as he wanted to win football games, it just really wasn't in the cards for them to do so last year. So, he's there for one season. They bring in Vrabes, and now, I mean, they got their guy for the future. I think Vrabes is a perfect fit. I think it was always probably the right fit. And then they go ahead and they bring back their old offensive coordinator and Josh McDaniels, who, had helped the Patriots win so many Super Bowls. And you talk about what they've done offensively and kind of the identity that they're sort of establishing here in the offseason. And I think obviously the influence there is Josh McDaniels, right? So they draft Travion Henderson, Kyle Williams. And it is kind of reminiscent of like those old Patriots teams where they have a ton of these backs and they could rotate. And even the receiver position, it's kind of a mismatch, right? That's sort of what they did back in the day. They won their Super Bowls via defense, and the offense, they got enough done. And they weren't really lighting teams up per se. You talk about those early 2000s Super Bowl teams. This is kind of built similar in a way. So yeah, I think Pats fans need to be excited. I know they probably are. And by far, you look at AFC East teams in terms of offseason moves, New England's been the best amongst all of them.
I think They again looking at it when I kept seeing what they were doing in free agency, when I saw what they did with getting Vrabel, when I saw what they did in the draft, I'm like, oh my goodness, this team could have leapfrogged to be the biggest threat. But we're gonna wait. We're gonna talk about the Dolphins first. So let's get into that real quick. Let's get into the Dolphins. Jake, look at us, man. We're gonna easily get over an hour here. I always think we can get these things done quickly, but
Never.
not the case, man.
No,
All
absolutely.
right. Let's move on to the Dolphins, the team that has won the crown for the past few years, at least from our perspective, as being the biggest threat to the Buffalo Bills. Let's talk about them a little bit and see if it still holds true for you and I, Jake. I think we've been in agreement the last 3 years that this was the team. Even when the Jets got Rodgers, it was like, come on.
Yeah.
Jets haven't proven anything in a while. So we didn't think Rodgers was going to take them over the edge, and he didn't. But let's talk about the Dolphins. I wasn't that impressed with the free agents, right? So they pick up James Daniel, a much needed. Their O line, they've got to get to a protection. We know how it rolls. Tua's not in that team. Is just any starting quarterback. You lose any starting quarterback, your team's going to struggle. But the Dolphins without Tua just were pretty bad, pretty bad. And so they bring in James Daniel from the Steelers. They sign him to a 3-year, $24 million contract. And of course, the GM was all about, getting that line better. They bring in the Bill Killer. This is the biggest move for me, and that's Zach Wilson.
Yep.
I'm kidding. I'm joking a little bit, but the dude has got two. He's got more wins against the Bills than Tua does. He's got 2 wins.
Crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
Does Tua? I was thinking about it. Has Tua ever beaten the Bills?
One time, and it was that super hot, obnoxious weather
Oh,
game. I
okay.
was there, and yeah,
That's right.
hmm
It was that game. That game was close. Neck and neck. Bills could have pulled it out. The heat was crazy that day. You were there. But Zach
yeah,
Wilson has 2 wins against the Bills. Can
that's
you
crazy,
believe
isn't
that he
it?
has more wins? That's a trivia question.
It's a great trivia
Who has
question.
more
It is.
wins against the Buffalo Bills? Zach
Yeah,
Wilson or Tua?
right.
You got it. It's got to be Tua. No, it's not. Zach Wilson. Um, so interesting. I don't know if he's actually not bad. I mean, better than what they have behind Tua right now. And we saw him come in, and again, it's another case where I think he just didn't have the team around him
Yeah,
when he was drafted, and but here he is, and I don't mind the move, and they shouldn't either because, like I said, he's got the 2 wins.
he's
They
wearing
bring
number 0, Mike, which I
0.
do not like. It's
Oh, that's
bizarre.
crazy.
Yeah, not a
Different.
fan of that.
Is there? I'm trying to think. You would know this because you're a trivia guy. Who's worn 0 over the? Is there any notable guys that have worn the number 0 or wore the
There's one
number 0?
guy, and he wore 00. It was Jim Otto, center for the
Okay.
Raiders back in the day. I mean, we're talking long, long ago, 60s and 70s. But that's really the only guy that stands out. I think they banned players from wearing that number, and they brought it back as recent as last year. I think it was the first year they allowed that. So yeah,
Yeah. So they go after another tackle. This guy's more of a depth piece with Larry Borum from the Bears. They bring in safety Ifatu. How do I say this one? Melifowu.
Ifeatu Melifonwu, yep,
You're better at that than I am. Safety from the Lions.
Obi
Got him.
Melifonwu's brother, I believe.
Got
Yeah,
him for a 1-year, $3 million deal. Got Larry Bourne for a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. Then they bring in also look at me, I can't even speak. Ashton Davis, safety from the Jets. Actually, they bring him over, so they get him on a 1-year deal. So I wasn't super impressed. I mean, other than Zach Wilson, and I'm kidding. Zach might have been their best free agent pickup. Talk me out of this. I mean, of the guys I mentioned, who did I miss?
yeah. It's funny. We were kind of getting on Keith a little bit. We're like, are the Dolphins just asleep at the wheel here? I mean, are they gonna make a move? They didn't have a lot of money to play with, so there was that, and they needed to save that money for the draft picks that they were going to have to sign. They had the 13th overall pick, and they took a guy who obviously I wanted at number 1, and Kenneth Grant. So they have to sign a guy like that. So I think they obviously had that in mind, and their goal was to mainly just add some more depth pieces. So guys that you actually did not mention, they did sign Willie Gay, and they also signed KJ Britt, and then Artie Burns as well at the cornerback position, who's a former first-round pick for the Steelers many moons ago. He's kind of bounced around the league a little bit, but a depth piece at the cornerback position. And that's a position, honestly, that I thought they would definitely address more so. And if there was anything in free agency, I felt that corner may have been the better option. But you mentioned the safeties. They did sign Davis and Melifonwu, who probably are going to be the two starting safeties there. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. Outside of that, Mike, Joe Cardona, they signed a long snapper too. Joe Cardona. Yes.
All right, I know on your
former-
list, he's probably the top free agent move they made.
Oh,
right there.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you went to talk about former Patriots. He was with the Patriots for a long time. And you know what I love? Navy guy, went to Navy for college. So how about that?
You know what's crazy? You see, they didn't have money, and I don't know the cap situation, but I also felt like the Bills didn't have money. Yet the Bills made some really good moves, I feel, both in free agency and obviously they needed money for the draft, and they had a stellar draft. But again, let's talk about their draft picks. And I only have 3 on here. I didn't go through all of them because they only had a first, they had a second, and they had no third or fourth. So I got their top 3 picks. First pick,
Yep.
of course, is fantastic. A guy that we wanted, a guy that we were drooling for, Kenneth Grant. They take him at 13. I was just shocked that they took Kenneth Grant. Obviously, I would have thought maybe they go offensive line, but as Keith had said a couple times, that their GM just for some reason didn't like to take off. Was it offensive lineman in the first round? Something like that. Kenneth Grant, great pick. And then they take in their second round. Oh, let's see here. They took
good luck pronouncing this name.
yeah, I know. Here they take another offensive lineman, Jonah. That's an easy way to pronounce
Great
it.
name. Great name.
Savalane. I'm just gonna go with it. Savalane.
Savatani, I believe is how you pronounce it.
So they take him. Another pick in the trenches for the Dolphins. Again, they needed help on the line. I would have thought they'd do in the first round, but they get Kenneth Grant. Not disappointed at all in that pick. I'm super happy because we wanted him. They go O-line, and then they take defensive lineman Jordan Phillips in the 5th round because they didn't have a 3rd or 4th. And I can't remember, Jake, why didn't they have a 3rd or 4th round? What is this still from years past trades or something? What happened that they've lost these two rounds, these 2 picks?
Yeah, years past trades, and I don't think we're still dealing with tampering issues or anything like that, or the Brady thing. I think that's over with. I think it was just a matter of trades from the past. Tyreek Hill maybe was one of those.
I was wondering, is that still lingering? I don't know.
That might be.
Philly Finn's forecasts. I know Keith might see this, might get wind of this, but yeah, let us know, sir. Why didn't we have a 3rd or a 4th round pick? I did ask Keith how he thought the draft was, and he said he was happy with it, considering they didn't have a 3rd or 4th round pick. So I think he liked even some of the deeper picks that they had, maybe beyond the 5th round. You could probably talk a little bit. Is there anyone beyond the 3 that I mentioned that you really like that they picked up?
Well, I love the Jordan Phillips one in round 5, especially. I think that's amazing value. You talk about a prospect that was on the Bills' radar, I'm sure, and I think they actually did meet with him. We could have gotten the other Jordan Phillips, as a defensive tackle to fill in for the former Jordan Phillips that was with Buffalo here. This dude is just a freak of nature. I think he squatted like 700 pounds or something like that, something ridiculous. But all the intentions I felt like with the Dolphins were to beef up the front. The fronts on both ends. You look at the offensive line, they take Jonah Savatani in the 2nd round, a guy that's going to probably start for them at guard right off the bat. And then, the defensive line, Kenneth Grant should be a starter on that team. He's going to be Dexter Lawrence 2.0 for them. Just a mammoth of a human being, and a guy that can not only just stop the run and was probably the best run defender in the draft, but a guy that, is able to push the pocket a little bit. So, really, really good job taking him at 13. I was pretty devastated, to say the least. But yeah, you look at some of the later picks. I mentioned Jordan Phillips. I think the value that they got in like Ollie Gordon at running back, a guy that was a Heisman hopeful, had a bit of a fall from grace in 2024 where he went from like 1,700 plus in 2023 to, I think it was only 800 yards last year. The production was crazy for him in college, and a dude that was maybe labeled as a, potential day 2 pick even at one point. They take him in the 6th round, and a guy that's going to, contribute to that running back room a little bit. So great job there. And then they get Quinn Ewers in the 7th round, who, again, another guy that fell a lot farther than I thought he would, and a dude that's going to challenge Zach Wilson for the backup quarterback position. So, yeah, I thought the value was great. And then they took a kid, who was it, Biggers, out of Georgia Tech. Mammoth of a human being, another big dude, defensive tackle. And he was almost one of the last picks of the draft, but I thought he was really good value too. He was, 6'6", 320, something like that. So the intention, again, was like beef up the 2 fronts. But then you fill in with some of these other guys with great value picks in Ewers and Ollie Gordon. So I thought it was actually a pretty good job considering the limited draft picks that they had in the early rounds.
Yeah, so to me, there's a lot of question marks, but there's a lot of if things go right and some of these guys return that I'm going to mention to, I don't know, 80% of their former self, and that's Bradley Chubb. Bradley Chubb's coming off of missing the whole year last year, had a devastating ACL tear and some other injuries as well. He was done the whole season, so he's had a full year to recover. You got Jalen Phillips, who another year where he was just coming off, I think it was it an Achilles? And then last year he got injured again, missed most of the year. So again, I'd like that kid, man. That guy was up and coming, and he's still young. If anyone can recover and make something happen, it's the young kid. So I watch for him. Jalen Ramsey. I mean, there's talk he wants out. So I don't know. It's not a done deal. I mean, there's been talks of where he's going to go, but do you think that's basically a done deal? Is this going to happen, or is this just smoke right now? And Ramsey will be on the Dolphins, or is he gone?
I don't know. I have a feeling he's drawing a lot of interest from around the league. There's going to be a done deal in the works before training camp, I feel like. So I know the Rams were actually supposedly a team that was in the running for that, which is interesting because that was where, he was traded to from Jacksonville initially. So that's his former team. And I think they had mentioned like the Cowboys and the Commanders were 2 other teams too. So yeah, I think something's going to get done there for sure. I could absolutely see it happening. Actually, I can see Dallas being the team to
Yeah, that's
land
the
him.
one that I've last heard about is Dallas has strong interest in him. So I
Yeah.
do think that's a done deal. Even though it's not official yet, I agree with you. Something's going to happen. I mean, last year Dolphins were a mess. I mean, you had Tyreek Hill leaving; he wants out. Again, I guess when you're disappointing season, people say things that they don't really mean. They regret afterwards, and I think that was just part of it. Like he realizes. So I think the Dolphins are in a good situation with Tyreek Hill. I think so. He's gonna be focused and playing for that big deal. So watch for him to have a good year. And of course, they have Waddle, John O. Smith. They have great weapons on offense. There's no doubt about that. The running backs are speedy. They had speedsters. This is a track team for sure.
Yeah.
I still worry about that old line. I don't know if it's, even though they've made some moves for it, I don't know if it's where it needs to be. For Tua, we'll find out there. But let me mention some other things here as well. So key losses for them is they lost Javon Holland and they lost Jordan Poyer. Right, those are 2 starting safeties. You may say, yeah, Poyer wasn't the Poyer that we knew in Buffalo, and he wasn't. The reason why Buffalo let him go. But still, he was a veteran safety alongside with Holland, and Holland had one of his worst years, although this kid was a stud in years prior. I forget, who did Holland go with there? Because
The Giants.
Giants. So good pickup there. So they have to replace their safeties. Their corners are a little sus as well. So I'm a little worried about their secondary. And again, though, if that defensive front, those guys returning from injury can return to, and then with Grant in the middle, and they make things behind them better, depending on how good they are. Right? We always say that that defensive line could make up for maybe some gaps behind them. And that might be the case here. They have solid linebackers. Guess who they probably be starting from? Tyrell Dotson, ex-Buffalo Bill,
yeah.
right? And I was listening to one of the Finn's forecast. That's our friend Keith's podcast, and they were high in Dotson. And Dotson,
Yeah,
his final year for us was really good. I mean, we didn't have high hopes, and he really was a standout that year. And
I think he led the Dolphins in interceptions last year. I want to say, yeah. I'm pretty sure he did.
He's turned out he was like the 34th best linebacker last year according to PFF. Yeah. Not bad. And they got Brooks as well there. Again, for me, it's their safeties. They do have Ashton Davis, who they did bring over in free agency, who actually has had the last 2 years. Although total snaps, I don't know. Is he? Let me see here. I have a note on Ashton. Let me give you a note here real quick. Where is he?
So he's played in a lot of games. He just hasn't really been the starter.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
mainly special teams have been a rotational guy.
Right. So PFF scores high because he's had limited snaps. He's only had 1 year of extensive starting experience.
Yeah.
And the Dolphins need starters. He's a playmaker. So we'll see how that pans out. 6'1", 202. You know that. I love it. Everything is great there. Former third round pick. So we'll see how it pans out. But they need that other guy. I don't know who that other guy is going to be partnering up with Davis. But yeah, a lot of question marks on the defense. The player, the names are there. Again, coming off injuries, those two big ones for me is Phillips and Chubb. They've got Seiler, he's a stud. Pair him up with Grant. Grant in the middle now. And
Chop Robinson
as well. I mean, so didn't even mention him. Thank you for.
I know that's your guy, Mike.
That was my guy. I was predicting that he'd be the defensive rookie of the year,
and he was in the running.
He was in the running,
and I mean, hysterical. I would have laughed if he got it because Keith would have been really.
That was funny because I remember saying that Keith was not happy with that pick, but overall later on he's like, he's super happy that they have him. So again, I forgot about him. Why, I don't know, but that defensive front is gonna be good for them, and their linebackers are good situations. They're in good situation there. So defensively, we'll see. Question marks, right? Question marks again within the safety spot. Of course, it's Bills. People were saying the same thing about the Bills. Was it last year?
Yeah.
When we lost Poyer, or was it 2 years ago when we lost Poyer and High? So people are saying the same thing. Bills are going to struggle, and we did to some degree. We did. So our defense was middle of the pack last year, probably one of the worst it's been in the McDermott era, I believe. Back me up if that's true or false, but I think we are middle of the pack, and prior years we were never that low.
It's interesting. I think even so though, Mike, like the points per game that we allowed, at least points against, we were still. I mean, it was top half of the league.
The points against were good, and that's because we led the league in turnovers.
Yep,
we led the league in turnovers, so we were that
opportunistic.
Right, exactly. Unfortunately, we didn't get those turnovers in that game against the Chiefs like we had against Baltimore. That's the reason why we beat Baltimore. I think we had 2 or 3 turnovers, and they had we got 3 or 4 from them, or 3 from them. We had none. So that we are very opportunistic. But when you look at the numbers, yards against, rushing against, they were middle of the pack.
Yeah.
So I like what again, for me, the question marks here, you can disagree or agree with me, is their offensive line. I think defense, a couple question marks in the secondary. Otherwise, I think the front's going to be fantastic. Again, Bradley Chubb and Phillips, but you mentioned Chop Robinson, Seiler and Grant. I mean, come on now. The team that line set up for success. Anything else you want to mention about them that I may have missed? Any particular position group you think I am wrong about? Please let us know.
Well,
please let me know.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think one thing I did mention, and just because I'm a long snapper guy, we're tracking these long snapper signings. By the way, New England did draft the long snapper in the 7th round, which I meant to mention earlier.
Okay.
So shout out to him. Ashby, I think his name. I forget. Vanderbilt guy. Cardona is replacing Blake Ferguson, Mike. So we no longer have the Ferguson brothers matching up
Oh
against each
man.
other in the
Okay.
AFC East. So only one remains, and it's Reed. Blake is a free agent, unfortunately. So that is one story to keep your eye on.
Okay. What do you feel about their offensive line? I mean, I've been saying I feel like
O-line
that's
is,
a little concerning to
yeah,
me.
I think there's a lot of meat on the bone, but there's a lot there that they have to prove. Patrick Paul at left tackle, coming into a second year. It's going to be a boomer bust type year for him, I think. James Daniels coming off, I think he had an Achilles injury, I want to say last year. So, he's going to probably start for them at left guard, I would assume. You go and sign a guy like that in free agency. He's a good player, but a lot of question marks coming off an injury. That's tough. Aaron Brewer at center, little undersized, but a good player, a solid player. And I honestly, one of their more proven guys on the offensive line there. I like the draft pick of Savat Ana'i. I think Savat Ana'i, something like that. I can't even pronounce his last name. But anyways, yeah, decent player. They took him in the 2nd round, and he should be the starting guard there. He's going to compete with Liam Eichenberg there, but I think Eichenberg is going to be more of a rotational guy, one of the 6th offensive lineman, if you will, in that rotation. And then Austin Jackson, I think is a solid right tackle. But yeah, again, I mean, you look at this O-line, they got a lot to prove, man. I'm not
Yeah.
sold on them, and I think you look at the offensive lines in the AFC East, they're
Yeah.
still probably the worst.
Yeah, I totally agree there. I mean, again, the weapons are stellar, right? You got Hill, Waddle, John O. Smith, who really came on for them last year. Finally, a tight end that they could utilize. He
Yeah.
was fantastic. They got great running backs. 8 chains there. If they can keep Tua upright, they've got the talent. I always joke, like, how can you not be successful with this talent that they have around, like the skilled positions, right? But that O line is a big impact. You don't have time to throw. I don't care who you are. I don't care what offensive weapons you have. So that's going to be a big thing for them as well. Their coach, I thought he'd be fired after last year, and I'm not sure what you think about him. And maybe I'm moving to the last segment here and who we think that um, team is that biggest threat to the Buffalo Bills. Um, I'll save that. I'll save that question for you here. I'm going to start with you. Let's get into it. Who is the biggest threat to the Buffalo Bills this year in the AFC East?
The New England Patriots. And I'm going to
Patriots.
say it not just because I felt like they had the best offseason, but you look at who's leading the pack, the coach. I think you look at these teams, the new hires, and Aaron Glenn, right? And it's a great move by the Jets. I think they're going to be trending upwards for sure. The Dolphins, what's gotten them in trouble in the past is Mike McDaniel, essentially. You talk about some of these bigger games, these games that come down to, 1 or 2 plays. You think of maybe what could have been and what could have went different. And I feel like McDaniel doesn't always make the best decisions. He struggles in key moments, and as good of an offensive mind as he is and as innovative as he is, he almost outcoaches and outsmarts himself in different ways. And I think that's what's kind of holding the Dolphins back in some ways. And I'm not saying he's the whole reason for that. I mean, he's got limited guys to work with at times too. Injuries have been brutal. Don't get me wrong, but he's the guy at the helm, and you would expect by now maybe at least a playoff win or something, just based on the rosters that they've been able to put together over the last 3 seasons, but hasn't even gotten that. So yeah, I'm taking New England. I think New England's going to be a 10-7 team this year. You got Vrabes, you got McDaniels. I think the experience that gives you, in addition to the revamped roster, is just priceless. So that, to me, I mean, that's the team I'm most afraid of, to be honest with you.
All right. I'm going to disagree a little bit. I can see where you're coming from. And I can't believe I'm even saying this. Maybe it's because I'm afraid of what Keith's going to say to me if he ever sees this. But I feel like there's a lot on the line for the Dolphins. Obviously, there's McDaniel's job. This dude, like you said, I agree with you. I could easily say it's the Patriots because what's really new about the Dolphins coming in this year? I feel like we've seen this movie. We've seen the same
Yeah.
players. It's not like they didn't just add a Tyreek Hill. They didn't just add a Jalen Waddle. They didn't just add a A-Chain. No, they've had those guys and they haven't been productive, which boggles my mind. Like I can just throw screens at these guys all day and I would think I would be successful, but obviously, you know, playing football as a kid in the playground is a lot different than the NFL because I'd just throw it to the fastest kid and off and run he goes, right? So,
Right.
and they got track stars all around them. Um, but his job's on the line. I think Tyreek Hill is very incentivized this year. He's going to want to get that paycheck. I think you're going to see him do everything that he can. There are a lot of question marks on defense. But I think the defense, if some of those guys that we talked about, including Chop Robinson, I think they have enough talent on the defense. Question marks as well. But what I like about them, as far as being the biggest threat, is the experience. They've been together longer. This is the team that I think just has so much on the line that they're going to be playing hard for McDaniels. We'll know early on whether the team quits on him or not. Um, but I'm going to say the Dolphins just because of their weapons, just because they've been together longer. And I think the Patriots are just 1 year away from taking that spot as the biggest threat. That's just my opinion. And again, I don't know if I'm saying that just because I like Keith and I don't want him to be mad at me, but that's why. I feel it's valid. I mean, they have a team that's been together longer than the Patriots, and
Sure.
they've got yes, Patriots have the great coach, but will he turn it around in 1 year? He could. I mean, if we're looking at last year's standings, right? Last year, Dolphins were 8-9, Jets 5-12, Patriots 4-13. Um, can he turn it around? Can he flip it? Can he get more than 8 or 9 wins than the Dolphins? I don't know. I think so. But again, they're going to get 2 losses. All these teams are going to have 2 losses to the Bills. So,
Love that.
but
Yes.
anyway, for me, it's still the Dolphins, and it's a scary team. It will always be a scary team with those weapons for me.
That's fair, Mike. I think that's very valid. So now my question to you is, what about the Jets? Are they just under the radar? Like maybe they kind of scoot out with a second place finisher. Maybe they challenge the Bills for first place. Is there a chance at all?
I do. I mean, we talked about them being under the radar. We talked about that despite losing some of those big names, they still have a really good roster. My concern there is brand new coaching staff across the board, as
Yeah.
well as bringing in Justin Fields, who, let's be real, the potential's there, and we've seen flashes. I just haven't seen enough to say that they're going to be able to leapfrog and be that second place team. And that's the only reason is just because of the newness of the coaching staff and Fields being that guy. Can he be that guy? Will he be that guy? The roster's good. It's extremely good
Yeah.
considering. You would think, if you didn't follow them or take a look at the roster, you'd be like, oh man, they lost Rodgers. By the way, Rodgers wasn't a big deal. Adams, but we talked about DJ Reed, CJ Mosley, who again you mentioned was hurt last year. No, Jake, I do not think they're that team. I think they're being underestimated for sure.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they end up as the second place team in the AFC East. I wouldn't be surprised. But I'm not going to say they're going to take over either of the Patriots or the Dolphins. I was just going to look real quick. I want to see. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about who, if they even have it yet. I'm looking for Vegas odds on the AFC East. But this one has the Bills, obviously favored, Patriots second, Dolphins a close third, and then the Jets finishing last. And
Wow.
that's from Bet was it Bet365, I
Okay.
think.
Yeah.
And then let me just go across the board here. Almost every one of the books has the Patriots as the number 2. So they're except for, sorry, who's this one here? There's one that has the Dolphins over the Jets, but they're extremely close in all cases. So Vegas is liking what you're saying.
About it. Yeah.
So
I did neglect to mention too. I just saw this. The Dolphins also signed Ryan Stonehouse, who has an absolute boot. I love talking about special teams. I just have to put this out there, and hopefully we see a lot of them this year. But this dude literally averages over 52 yards a punt in his career, Mike. Like, this guy is one of the better punters in the NFL. So you want to talk about good signings. I don't know if it puts him over the hump, but I totally forgot to mention that, and I just got to add that in there. So you know me and my specials.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I think I like you mentioned, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets. I would be a little surprised if they were to take number 2. I wouldn't be surprised if they took the 3rd spot at all. But we'll see. We'll see which one of us is right. You took the safe route. I could have taken New England. I could have taken New England as the biggest threat, but I'm gonna stick with the team that's been the biggest threat for the last since this channel's inception, and that is
Sure.
the Dolphins. So I'll stick with that. So that kind of does it for this. Any closing thoughts, Jake?
No, this is always a fun show. It's funny. Last year at this time, we were saying like the Jets are Super Bowl favorites, and trying to stomp all the haters out and try to convince everyone that the Bills are still the better team. It's wild where we're at right now. It is incredible to have an MVP quarterback. And, listen, we got to give credit where credit's due to the other teams in the AFC East. So it's good to shine light on those other teams because, nothing's guaranteed. So, yeah, it's going to be a good season. I'm excited. I can't wait. Football cannot come soon enough. We're already into June coming up here. So can't wait.
And for those that are out there, if you're new to the channel, please drop a nickel and subscribe button. Hit that like button for us. It goes a great way in helping the channel. We're trying to get to 2,000 subs. We're at 1920 right now, Jake. 1920. I think that was a good year back in the day.
Right?
So 80 more subs. Share the channel with others. Again, we do this. We love to do it. We're both from Buffalo. Jake's still in Buffalo. I have children in Buffalo, and the Bills are just been our life. So, from a sports side of things, the Bills, Sabres. I saw the Bandits won another championship.
3-peat, baby. Yeah.
Why can't that rub off on one of our other teams? One of the original teams, right?
I know.
Why can't that rub off? All right, Jake. Until next time. I'll see you later. Go Bills.
Go Bills.